Hey YouTube, this is Ajmal the developer and welcome back to CSS tutorial number 6 on CSS Box Model. I'd like to take some time to explain this concept because it's very important for the fact that it covers 4 different properties or aspects, which are margin, border, padding, and element itself. So it covers 4 different topics in one concept. So without further delay, we can go ahead and take a look at this concept. So as mentioned before, in this tutorial, we're looking into CSS Box Model. This is something that I should have covered before because Box Model covers a few important aspects of CSS that include margin, which we discussed before, border, padding, that we will deep dive in this session, and lastly element. So CSS Box Model covers all of these 4 different topics or properties, and to put it into a visual picture, I've actually included a box model a picture description here. As you can see here, in the middle we have the content itself, for example div whatever element that you want to include in your div. It could be a heading, a paragraph, or any other element. And outside of your content you have your padding, which is the space between your element and the border of that element. And outside of that padding we have the border, and on the very last part of our box model we have our margin. So margin is the space between 2 different elements. If you have a heading and if you have a paragraph, the space between those 2 elements are the margin, and you can actually manipulate your margin. So without any delay, we can actually go ahead and start coding. So what I have here is a sample. I will actually show you here. So we have a folder called VS Code for Visual Studio Code, and we have 2 different files. I will explain why we have 2 different files, and there's a good reason for that. And aside from that, I've gone ahead and downloaded the live server extension. It's a very handy extension. You can get it from the extension marketplace online. It is free. So after you download that, you would see a go live icon here at the bottom, and once you hit that, like I'm doing right now, you get a live server on your browser. So all change that you make in your file, they get generated on the fly, so you don't have to go back on your web server, or sorry, you don't have to go back to the browser and reload every time that you make change. All you have to do is make your change, save, and it loads on the fly. So that's the beauty of having this live server extension. And going back to these 2 different files, it's best to have a separate file for your style. It's cleaner, it's a good practice of coding. I don't recommend including your style in your index or HTML file, because it would make your code space a bit complicated. If your file gets too big, then it would be basically mistake prone. So that's the whole idea of having a separate style sheet. So we can actually go ahead and do our coding here. So as usual, we can start with a simple boilerplate. So what you do is you would just enter the exclamation mark and hit the tab button, and it gives you a boilerplate. And that's the beauty of having a VS Code. It makes your coding a lot rapid. One thing is that I need to mention is that in order to link your style sheet to your HTML sheet, it is very important to um, include, it's not just important, it's a must. You have to include a link tag in between your heading tags in order for it to be linked to your style sheet. And the link tag is like so. So you would open tag link and space rel, that's the attribute for the declaration of the style sheet, and oh, actually you need to put it in between the double quotes. So style sheet space next attribute would be the type attribute, and the type would be text / CSS, and lastly we would have to do our hyperlink reference attribute, which is href equals double quote style / or not slash but dot CSS. So it's very important to have both of these files in the same folder or directory, because that's the best way to do it. So what href is saying is that our style sheet is in style.css folder. In any case, or for any reason, if your style sheet is in a different folder, you would then have to specify the name of that specific folder. For example, you would say CSS / style.css. If your style sheet is in a folder, in a hypothetical folder called CSS, then you would have to do CSS / style.css. But that doesn't apply to our case, so we're not going to do that. And that's that for our link. And the rest would be in the body section. And in the body section, all we would do is we would just declare two classes. We're going to call the first, or two devs. We're going to call the first dev 1, which is for box 1, and we're going to go ahead and give it a class name so that we can style it. So our first class would be 1, and we're gonna, so class 1, we're gonna close our, there's a mistake here, there. So class 1, we're gonna copy this and paste it to make the process faster. So next dev would be 2, and class would be 2 as well. So that's all for our devs. We're gonna save this, and we're gonna go to our style sheet, and let's write some style here. So for class, we would just put a dot and then the name of the class, which is 1, and we're gonna give this a background color. A background color of any random color is fine. So I'm gonna give it this orange color. So that would be E09F7D. So that's that particular color. And we'll also give it a width. Let's give it a width of 50 pixel, and a padding of 50 pixel as well, and a border of say 1 pixel solid green, and lastly a margin of say 5 pixel. So that's for our box 1, and for our box 2.2, so we're dot 2, basically we're attaching this style to that div 2, and we're gonna give it a background, not attachment but just background color of a reddish color, so that would be EF5D60, so that's just a random color. EF5D60. I'm getting the something is wrong here. Oh, that is wrong. Should be should be colon, not semicolon. Okay, so background of reddish color, and again width of 50 pixel, and a padding of 50 pixel again. So that's all the coding that we do. Let's save this, and we should be able to see our change on the right side, and we're not seeing it for there you go. So we have our change on the right side. As you can see, we have box 1 and box 2, and as you can see, we have on our box 1 we have a margin of 5 pixels, so that's space between box 1 and box 2, as well as on the left side there is also a margin, so that is the margin that we have applied. To show you that this margin actually works, so we're going to go ahead and change this to 10 so that you can actually see the difference. So as soon as we hit Control Save, we should see this space expand. There you go. You saw that, right? So that changed. So margin does work. And the border is basically the border around this box. Let's also change that to see that in action. Instead of 1 pixel, let's do 5 pixel. Control Save, and there you go. So that kind of thickened. And padding is basically the space between that element of element itself and the border. Let's decrease this. As opposed to 50 pixel, let's make it 20 pixel. There you go. So it kind of shrunk a bit. And width is basically the width of that whole entire box. And instead of 50, let's do it 60. Control Save, and I expanded a bit. Okay, so we saw margin in action, we saw border, we saw padding in action, and the width of the whole entire box. And if you go on our browser here and click right and go to inspect, so this is a Google Chrome dev tool. If you inspect it, we should see the CSS Box Model in action here. As you can see, so this is the border, that's the margin, border, padding, and the element itself. So simple as that. So that is all for CSS Box Model. Hopefully this did shine some light on the subject itself, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Thank you, and bye for now.